Chief of Solid Minerals Development and Chairman of the African Minerals Strategy Group, Dele Alake, says Africa's minerals have powered industrialization elsewhere while the continent's economies remain under-industrialized. He stated that the paradox must end. The vision must be clear to move from extractive dependence to transformative industrialization.
And this one, the revenue for the government is going to be around $500 million per annum.
Imagine waking up to the news that Nigeria has just blocked a major United States mining company from accessing one of the most valuable resources of the future, lithium. Not just any lithium, but $500 million worth buried deep in Nigerian soil. And for the first time in a long time, Nigeria is saying no to foreign control, and yes to keeping its wealth for its own people. Across Washington, shockwaves are spreading. Lithium isn't just another mineral, it's the engine behind electric cars, smartphones, renewable energy, and the future of global power. Losing access to Nigerian lithium means losing influence in one of the most strategic industries on Earth, and America wasn't prepared for this. But Nigeria's decision didn't happen overnight. After years of watching foreign companies walk in, take resources, and leave communities with nothing, the Nigerian government has drawn a line in the sand. This time, they are refusing to let millions, even hundreds of millions, slip away from local hands. So why did Nigeria reject the deal? What exactly was the U.S. trying to secure? How did a $500 million resource become the center of an international tug-of-war? And what does this mean for Nigeria's future, its economy, and the global race for lithium dominance? Today we break down the full story, the hidden interests, the political pressure, the economic impact, and why this moment may change everything for Nigeria. Stay with me. Lithium, a mineral once ignored, now more valuable than gold in the 21st century. The world calls it white oil, the fuel powering electric cars, smartphones, solar batteries, military technology, and the entire global transition away from fossil fuels. And in the heart of Africa, beneath the red soil and rocky hills of Kaduna, Nasarawa, and Kogi, lies one of the largest lithium deposits on the continent. A resource worth billions, a resource that could change Nigeria's future forever. But for decades, this kind of story has followed the same pattern. Foreign companies arrive, dig out minerals, ship them away, and leave behind towns that remain poor, underdeveloped, and forgotten. It happened with oil, it happened with gold, it happened with coltan. And now, as lithium becomes the most strategic mineral on Earth, Nigeria is refusing to repeat the same mistake. This is the moment Nigeria decided to block a powerful U.S. mining company from extracting $500 million worth of lithium and keep the wealth for Nigerians. Across Washington, the reaction was immediate: confusion, anger, and shock. Because this wasn't just any business deal. This was a direct hit to the United States' growing fear, losing control of the global lithium supply while China expands aggressively across Africa. For America, Nigerian lithium was supposed to be a guaranteed win. But for Nigeria, the time for being used, exploited, and underpaid was finally over. To understand how this showdown started, we must go back to the quiet negotiations that took place behind closed doors, not in Abuja, not in Lagos, but in foreign boardrooms where Nigeria's future was being discussed without Nigerians. The U.S. mining company proposed a deal that looked good on paper. They would help Nigeria set up extraction operations, build small community projects, and create a handful of jobs. In return, they wanted long-term extraction rights, tax benefits, and the freedom to export Nigerian lithium directly to U.S. buyers. In other words, the same old playbook Africa has seen for 60 years. But something was different this time. Nigeria had learned from recent events. Zimbabwe banned raw lithium exports. Namibia restricted critical minerals. The DRC renegotiated mining contracts across Africa. A quiet revolution was unfolding. Nations were no longer willing to sell raw materials cheaply and watch foreign companies become billionaires. Nigeria saw this global shift and joined it. So when U.S. companies approached with big promises and polished presentations, the Nigerian government responded with something unexpected. A firm no, not because they didn't want business, but because the proposed deal offered little value beyond extraction. Nigeria wanted processing plants, refineries, factories, and technology. Transfer: Nigeria wanted ownership, not dependency. The message from Abuja was clear: if you want Nigerian lithium, you must invest in Nigeria, not take from Nigeria. The United States wasn't prepared for that answer. For decades, Western companies treated Africa as a resource stop: easy access, guaranteed supply, low resistance. But this new Nigeria was different, confident, strategic, and aware of the global battle for control of energy minerals. Behind the scenes, the block deal triggered political ripples. Diplomats made calls. Lobbyists pushed for reconsideration. Analysts warned that Nigeria was shifting too close to China by rejecting Western offers. News outlets framed the decision as anti-investment, ignoring the reality that Nigeria was only demanding fair value. But on the streets of Abuja and Lagos, the reaction was completely different. For many Nigerians, the move felt like a long overdue moment of national pride. A moment where Nigeria finally said, "Our minerals are not cheap." A moment where leaders took a stance not for foreign powers but for the ordinary Nigerian citizen. Lithium became more than just a mineral, it became a symbol of sovereignty. The U.S. company insisted their proposal would benefit local communities, but Nigerians asked a painful question. If foreign mining creates prosperity, then why are mining towns across Africa still poor? Why do Africans remain surrounded by wealth but unable to access it? Why do minerals leave the continent while value returns to foreign countries? Nigeria refused to let history repeat itself. The turning point came when local experts presented a shocking analysis. Exporting raw lithium brings in small revenue, but refining lithium inside Nigeria multiplies its value by 5 to 10 times. A 500 million resource could become a 3-5 billion industry if processing was done locally. Manufacturing battery components could create thousands of jobs. Entire tech hubs could grow around lithium-based industries. Suddenly, the picture became clear. Nigeria didn't need to hand over its future for small royalties. It could build something bigger, something lasting, something Nigerian. So when the mining company insisted that they lacked capacity to build processing plants in Nigeria, the answer was simple. Then you won't mine here. This decision shocked analysts because it represented a shift in global power dynamics. African nations were no longer reacting, they were negotiating. No longer begging, they were setting terms. No longer trapped, they were rising. But the U.S. company wasn't ready to let go. Reports suggest they tried to renegotiate, offering slightly higher royalties and promises of training programs, the exact same promises foreign companies have made for 40 years without any significant impact. Nigeria held firm. The government demanded 100% local processing, or a majority local ownership stake. Anything less was unacceptable. The mining company backed off, and Nigeria blocked their access. This wasn't just a business move, it was a message to the world. Nigeria will no longer export its future. Foreign companies will not dictate the terms. Global powers will not be allowed to drain African wealth without giving Africa value in return. The news reached global energy markets within hours. Lithium stocks reacted, analysts debated Nigeria's risk level. Some accused the country of being difficult, others praised it for being bold and protecting its people. But behind all the headlines, something deeper was happening. Nigerians across the country began discussing what could happen if the nation truly took control of lithium. A new tech industry built in Africa, not imported, battery factories, electric vehicle assembly plants, solar storage innovations, new jobs for young engineers, a future where Nigerian raw materials power Nigerian-made products. For decades, Nigeria has depended on crude oil, a resource controlled by foreign companies, manipulated by global markets, and surrounded by decades of corruption. Lithium represents something different, a clean start, a new era, a chance for Nigeria to be part of the future, not stuck in the past. And that's why this showdown with the U.S. company matters so much. It's not about blocking investment, it's not about starting conflict, it's about demanding respect and value in an industry that will shape the next century. While foreign companies scrambled to rethink their strategy, Nigeria opened the door to a new kind of partnership. Countries and companies willing to invest in refineries, processing plants, and real industrial development were invited. Those who came only to extract and leave were pushed away. For the first time in modern history, Nigeria was setting the rules. This decision has now become a turning point in Africa's relationship with global superpowers. As the world transitions to green energy, lithium will decide which countries lead and which countries follow. Nigeria chose leadership, for analysts may call it risky, but Nigerians call it necessary. Because this time, the wealth beneath the soil must work for the people who walk on top of it. This is not just a story about lithium. This is a story about a nation deciding its destiny. A story about rejecting dependency. A story about protecting what belongs to the next generation. Nigeria did not just block a U.S. mining company. Nigeria protected its future, and the world is watching. As this story comes to a close, let's take a step back and think about what truly happened here. Because this is not just a business deal rejected. This is not just a government decision. This is a moment in history where Nigeria stood tall in a world that has tried time and time again to keep Africa on its knees. For decades, foreign powers have walked into African nations with the confidence of people who believed everything here was theirs for the taking. The oil, the gold, the diamonds, the cobalt, the land. And now the lithium. They walked in expecting a yes. They walked in expecting silence. They walked in expecting a handshake and a signature. But today, Nigeria answered with something they were not prepared for. Self-respect, by blocking a foreign mining company from taking $500 million worth of lithium out of the country. Nigeria declared that its future would no longer be written by outsiders. It would be written by Nigerians, by the young people who dream. of working in technology. By the communities who want to see factories, not abandoned pits, by the generations who deserve more than the leftovers of their own wealth. This decision is a message to every Nigerian watching. It says, your country has value, your resources have value, and your future has value. For far too long, Africa's story has been told. Through lost opportunities, lost wealth, lost control. But today's story is about protection, about ownership, about nations finally waking up to the true worth of what lies beneath their soil. Think about how different things could be if decisions like this were made decades ago. Imagine if Nigeria had refined its own oil from the beginning. Imagine if the gold of Zamfara had been used to build Nigerian industries. Imagine if coltan, cobalt, and rubies had been turned into factories, tech companies, and wealth that stayed within African borders. We can't change the past, but we can change the future. And that's exactly what this lithium decision represents, a turning point. The world is entering a new industrial era, powered not by coal or oil, but by minerals like lithium. These minerals will determine who leads in electric cars, who leads in renewable energy, who leads in global power. Nigeria cannot afford to hand this opportunity away like the ones before it. Not this time. Not again. This moment sends a warning to every foreign company watching. If you come to Nigeria only to extract and leave, don't bother coming. If you want profit without partnership, don't waste your flight ticket. If you want lithium, then be ready to build, invest, transfer technology, and grow with Nigeria. Because Nigerians are no longer asking for fairness, they are demanding it, and let's be honest, it's about time. For too long, Africa's minerals have built the wealth of other nations. African copper built Western electricity. African uranium powered European reactors. African oil filled American tanks. African diamonds fueled global luxury. African cobalt built the batteries in almost every smartphone on Earth. Meanwhile, African communities remained poor. But now, Africa is changing. Nigeria is changing. A new generation is rising loud, educated, fearless, and ready to challenge the old system. And that generation is saying, we will not be exploited anymore. This story is not only about rejecting a US company, it's about rewriting the rules of global trade. It's about showing that Africa is not weak, not desperate, not directionless. Africa is strategic, Africa is informed, Africa is waking up. And Nigeria, Africa's giant, just made one of the boldest moves yet. So as we close this video, remember this moment, because years from now, people will look back at decisions like this as the spark that changed an entire continent's direction. The spark that inspired local mining laws. The spark that built new industries. The spark that created jobs, factories, research centers, and new technologies. A spark that began with one powerful word. No, Nigeria said no today so it could say yes to a better tomorrow, a stronger tomorrow, a richer tomorrow, a Nigerian tomorrow. And no matter how global powers react, one thing is certain, Nigeria has chosen itself, and that choice will echo for generations. Thank you for watching this powerful story. Stay informed, stay aware, and remember, Africa is rising and the world is watching.